the spaces of Wild West right now, especially when it comes to compliance.
They showed me the site and I was like, don't do it. Most of the issues is more tied to crap that's coming over from China, completely unregulated through these research-only sites. Part of the benefit of social media and Reddit is it does expose you.
It's crazy to see you have all these like TikTokers.
We're now 13,000 patients into this journey. We're getting that done for $200 to $300 a month.
Where do you see telehealth in the next 2, 3, 5 years even? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Compound Wisdom. I'm your host, Steve Sood. Today, we're actually joined by Matt Stern, founder and CEO of MyStart Health. Matt built his career by owning the entire customer journey, from the first ad someone sees to the last interaction they have with the brand. And what he's doing now is really taking that and applying that operator mindset to telehealth. Today, we'll be talking about how GLPs became a patient acquisition engine for MyStart, why women's hormone optimization and HRT access is the next big thing, and how Matt uses his math and science married to art philosophy to really keep growth grounded in numbers, patient experience, and outcomes. Matt, welcome to Compound Wisdom. Thanks for jumping on. One of the things I want to do is really dive into how you got started in business and how you ended up in, obviously, with MyStart Health, and in the telehealth space, and even the steps
for
before
sure.
that.
Yeah. I spent the last 20 years learning how to build businesses from the ground up and deploying businesses using digital marketing as like the core tactic for growing them from 0 to 100. And really the competence that I've built is understanding how a business flows to build what I call like the entire consumer journey or customer ecosystem. So understanding from media buying and customer acquisition all the way through the lifetime value of a customer through call center and merchant processing and all the pieces of the puzzle that it takes to really be successful in a business online is where I've cut my teeth and done it across a lot of different industries over a lot of years. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
That's awesome, man. Obviously you got into MyStart. You had a previous telehealth company on that. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the kind of entry point into telehealth for me started in 2015. We were running a business at that point where it's kind of like a growth incubator, where we had a team of experts, about 20 guys here in San Francisco that were experts across that entire life cycle that I was explaining, that entire consumer journey. And we would deploy those experts almost like a private equity model where we would come in and we would take a piece of equity and take businesses that we really believed in that didn't know how to grow online. And we would provide capital and expertise into those businesses, like basically a trained team of ninjas to come in and execute across the business. And we met these guys. They were running a telehealth platform and just I kind of had a light bulb moment, where we saw the potential in what this platform could do and giving people more access to directly to doctors. And also that it was just a really underutilized platform, meaning the way that they were marketing wasn't how we would do it. And so when we deployed our strengths against it, it like created this amplifying effect. And so we got, we went all in on that business. We acquired that company. And yeah, that was my first entry into healthcare, where I really saw the power of what we could do from a digital growth perspective applied to the healthcare industry and just how powerful it was. So yeah, this being my second entry point into it, really what I saw was the rise of the GLP-1 medications, and all around me, right? Friends and family were having their lives transformed by these medications. And I was looking at the companies that we were competing back in 2015, 2017 with, the Hims and Rose of the world. Yeah. Looking at those businesses and just understanding they hadn't really evolved all that much. There wasn't any new secret sauce. There wasn't anything, gotchas that I didn't know. And so, thought of it as a great entry point to get back into the space. And it's been an incredible journey. We're now 13,000 patients into this journey as MyStart and have this like incredible growth trajectory into 26 to launch other programs, and just really excited about it.
That's awesome. How long has MyStart been around to get to 13,000 patients? I think that's a true facet in itself. It's amazing.
Thank you. We launched last August, and I'd say like August to December was very small. Like we were just learning, there was still, even though I knew the business, you don't know any new startup until you're really in it. You always get your butt kicked in those initial months, and it's like, can you push past that? And can you survive? So what really wasn't until like even February or March of 25 until I really felt like we had something. We understood the model, we understood the complexities around the doctor's piece and the pharmacies. And these medications are really personalized, and every person responds differently to them. So it's not simple at all.
Yeah,
It's much more
absolutely.
complex than I expected getting into it. But it's also way more rewarding than I thought getting into it. Like this is the most fun, the hardest I've ever worked, and the most fun I've ever had in any business over the last 20 years.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Now, I know you really focus on women with MyStart, and obviously I want you to touch on why that is and also some of the things that you're wanting to focus on this year for specifically women.
Yeah. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I get into a business eyes wide open, right? Like, I'm very data driven, so I didn't get into it thinking like this would be a women's health business.
Yeah.
But there's something about the way that we're marketing and the appeal of the brand that has just appealed to a largely female heavy audience and an
Yeah.
older audience as well. So like most of our patients are over the age of 50. About 85% of them are women,
Yeah.
and we still, have great success with men. It just happens to be women that are really attracted to the program. And I think that's generally the case across GLP-1s is with talking to other business owners in this space. I think it's
Yeah.
generally the case. But, you know, my excitement about it, and from the beginning, this was always part of the business model was, how do we build other programs to benefit the patients' lives that we touch? And it's
Yeah.
just so striking that this is an audience that we can really help. And it really is on the forefront of these evolving programs around women's sexual health and that you're seeing in the news, and hormone health that is really popular in the news as medications like Addy just went through FDA approval, and the FDA just came out and took a huge stance, a huge correction on a stance that they took 20 years ago on their stance
Yeah.
on hormone replacement therapy. So timing's perfect in the market. We have the audience for it, and that's where we're going in 26.
Nice. I want you to actually touch on HRT specifically and, your personal experiences with it. And obviously, touch on that and then also your plans on what you want to do with it in this year as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I, over the last year, as we've gotten deeper into this business and I've gotten more interested in the space at large, and just like I've always been interested in longevity and health, and like that's for myself. But
Yeah.
in studying the women's health journey and watching my wife's journey over the last 5 years since having our baby, it's forced me to learn a lot more about what women go through having a baby, and the hormonal changes that happen. And then as I've
Yeah.
studied that more, I've actually recognized that the decision the FDA made like 20 years ago greatly impacted my mom and that whole
Yeah.
generation of women. So women in their 70s now that 20 years ago were going through menopause and have over the last 20 years gone through that change in their bodies, were told 20 years ago that that hormone replacement therapy wasn't an option for them. And I look at my mom's health today. She's 77, and she has really bad osteoporosis. She had a heart issue last year that she had surgery for. And when you look at the number one and number two things that they're pointing to that hormone replacement therapy can really help in your aging, are those two pieces, is bone density
Yeah.
and heart health. And it's like,
Yep.
oh my God, that's it.
Yeah.
And she was told by her doctors, my mom even told me, she said she tried to like help me with my menopause, right? She's having these terrible hot flashes. She's going through this, and she's going to doctor after doctor and being told, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. It's just part of aging. And
Yeah.
now, fast forward 25 years, and my wife has a child and is going through her own changes that come with that. And going to doctor to doctor to doctor, asking the same questions, and asking like, how do I get my brain back? How do I get my body back? And being
Yeah.
told basically the same thing, like, you look great, you're healthy, your blood work looks great. They've done multiple rounds of blood work at this point, and every single doctor basically came back and said the same thing: you're healthy, you're great. And she's like, no, I'm not. That's not it.
Yeah.
That's not the
Yeah.
answer, right? And
Yeah.
now I'm sitting over here on the other side studying these evolutions and studying like what's changing in healthcare, and realizing that like the system's broken, that these doctors actually don't have the training and don't have the understanding of how to even help someone that's going through what she's going through. It's like matching a square peg in a round hole. Like they just can't, they have no idea. They don't have the tools to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the path that we're on, because obviously I could have 25 years ago made a huge impact on where my mom's health is today. And I feel
Yeah.
like my wife really has a chance. And I mean, we're lucky, right? We're in San Francisco. We're in like the most probably progressive place that you could be in from like a naturopath perspective and looking at
Yeah.
more natural solutions. And so we have found naturopath doctors that will come alongside her, like holistic medicine doctors, but they're like $6,000-8,000 to get
Oh
engaged
yeah.
in these protocols. And so
Oh
they put
yeah.
her on a protocol, which was GLP-1 and hormone
Yeah.
therapy and testosterone, and like supplements that are also way overpriced. And these are all things that, like in MyStart, I believe we can do for a fraction of the cost. Like literally 10% of the cost of what my wife has paid to go through this protocol over the last 6 months, we can do in MyStart for 10% of it. So like instead of 8,000, it's like $200. That's
Yeah.
literally what I believe we have the opportunity to do and reach millions of people because additionally, like I said, we're in San Francisco, but what about the rest of the country that doesn't have
Yeah.
access to, could never even find a doc? Even if you wanted to pay $8,000, you still can't find a doc that'll do it. So building out these protocols and working with doctors that really want to be on the forefront of helping women
Yeah.
go through perimenopause and menopause, I think is a really exciting opportunity for us as a business to align with these docs, do the proper training, come alongside these women and really make an impact on their lives.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. It's huge to see kind of the trajectory of the impact telehealth is, having obviously in the world. Let's talk about the traditional medicine of going to a doctor, waiting to see a doctor, to kind of what my start is in this whole, implosion of telehealth and the differences of that. I want you to touch on that.
Yeah, for sure. So most of what, our guiding principles are all around access and affordability.
Yep.
So those are the two driving principles of everything that we do at MyStart. And I think on the tackle them both separately, but on the affordability piece, so what even if you get to a doctor that thinks you're eligible for a GLP-1, then your cost to go access that medication, because most insurance companies are not paying for it and not covering it at this point, your cost
Yeah.
is $1,000 to $1,400. You come to MyStart, one of our docs that specializes in weight management and weight loss, writes a script. We're getting that done for $200 to $300 a month. So again, fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
And then from a accessibility perspective, again, if you can find a doc that gets it, right? Which is not in the
Big part.
traditional healthcare system today.
Yeah.
You still have to find a doc that gets it. And I'd say from just first person testimonies that I get from friends and family that are trying to get help with this. I had a call this weekend. I guess it wasn't a weekend. I feel like it's a weekend. It's Friday, right?
Yeah.
New
It's all a
Year's.
blur at this point.
It's all a blur. But it was probably Wednesday. I had a call with my wife's aunt. The same situation. She lives in Palm Springs. She has access to amazing doctors. There's a lot of docs there. I'm specializing in anti-aging with the audience that's down there in the desert.
Yeah.
And she went to her doc and they would not write a script for GLP-1s. And even because they're still not accepting
Why?
the evidence, she's not
Just,
from a just pure weight perspective. She's not at a BMI that's obese,
okay.
per BMI. If you're just looking at BMI, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not looking at the other ancillary benefits that come from these medications and
Yeah.
what, like everyone can, and not everyone, but probably 90% of Americans could afford to lose weight. And
Yeah.
so like the weight loss benefits are one piece of it, but it's the other
Yep.
benefits. She's worried about her mental health. She's worried about her mom passed recently, and suffered with dementia, and Alzheimer's for years and years. And so she's really worried about the mental health piece.
Yeah.
And, I think that's exciting where all the studies are coming in this next year around the benefits of GLP-1s and, in being a preventative measure around brain health and heart
Yeah.
health, I think is coming too.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, she couldn't even qualify, even though I think, from a BMI perspective, she's right on that border, like very,
Yeah.
very borderline.
So she wanting to, that's actually brings up a great topic is microdosing. I would obviously want you to touch on microdosing and, impacts of and positive impacts of that. Because a lot of people think, oh, GLPs, it's just used to lose a ton of weight. There is a huge, new thing happening of microdosing itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the movement around microdosing is really exciting. I think I'm on it. Like I'm a
Yeah.
believer. So like, most people would look at me and I'm in good physical shape. I work my butt off in the gym and like I
Yeah.
am generally in good health. But I was sitting here preaching about all the benefits of these medications across, you know, cholesterol and heart health and all this, these new studies that are coming. And I was like, if I, I'm preaching it, but I got to be living it too.
Yeah.
And, I think it's amazing. I think it's been like 6 or 8 weeks for me. And I've lost a little bit of weight. But I notice like just in terms of my ability to stabilize my blood sugar, incredibly beneficial. I'm also have always had some tie to like my father's genes around high cholesterol that no matter how good I eat, how much I exercise, I've never been able to kick. That's always been like the one thing that's still off the charts on my blood
Yeah,
work. So I'm
yeah,
super excited to do like my blood work again in about 3, 4 months and see where that
yeah.
comes in because I think it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
But
cool to see, especially with blood work. I know I want you to touch on that with what you're going to be doing with blood work and MyStart and really offering longevity versus just GLPs and your vision around that.
yeah, so I think similar to the my attitude around microdosing is my attitude to like being connected to what's going on internally and
Yeah,
blood really is the entry point into really understanding what people need from a longevity perspective. And you're seeing some incredible companies coming out and really proving that there's a market for this. So
yeah.
the Function Health of the world and Superhuman and these companies that we
Superpower,
all
yeah.
follow and and model our lives and businesses after. But they're not doing anything special from like a coaching perspective to really like empower people with the data and the knowledge that they need and the products they need.
Yeah,
So I think it's the marriage of both. I think there from a business perspective, I'm mindful that like if we can do our part to educate people on the benefit of getting this data, and then we can actually use it to coach around them, we can build an incredible business that empowers people with that data and really gets to a level of personalization. There's a few companies out there, I think, doing it well right now, but not a ton at scale. So I think it's a big opportunity for us to, again, I use the term like come alongside these patients, right? Because
yeah,
people are out there like searching for answers. There's still a huge lack of education around why
massive.
and
Yeah,
what it means for them. And so that's our goal. Our goal as a business in the next year is to get to a level where we are personalizing care based on blood work. So
yeah,
in the hormone program that we're going to build, blood work will be a key piece of that. Really important for the doctors and for the women to understand what their like benchmarks are and what we're measuring against, so we can actually measure outcomes and measure the progress and just continue to personalize the care that each person gets. And we're going to be working with pharmacy partners that are able to personalize. We're going to be working with doctors that can personalize. Like
yeah.
that's where the excitement is in this business.
Absolutely. Now you touched on one part, which is actual doctors, and I want you to touch on the difference of dealing with doctors that know the space, especially around GLPs, peptides, to ones that don't and are just like pushing a script through, right? What's the difference of that for you?
Yeah, I mean, you see both, right? I think some doctors have used this as a retirement plan,
Yeah,
telehealth, to just like
yeah,
check the box and keep some checks coming in.
yeah,
And then there are other docs that are really training and going deep on specific protocols to support specific patients, especially on the women's health side. There's some pretty robust education and training programs that doctors are going through as like a renewal of their skills and knowledge around the evolution of the new evidence that's coming through,
yeah,
especially in light of the FDA's latest findings where they're like reversing their stance on the black box warning on hormone therapy. And I think that's coming for testosterone as well on the men's side, where they're going to reverse their stance and make it more widely available. So it's not as scrutinized, which will just increase accessibility for all people, which is better for everyone's longevity.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know how else to say it except for there's a massive difference between someone who's just checking the box that I
yep,
read this person's profile and I approve them for this script versus someone who's actually taking the time to understand the patient at a deeper level. And I think there's benefits and downsides to both. I think in some cases, generally healthy people should be able to get something written for them relatively quickly. Like I spent 5 minutes on the phone with a doc over the holiday because uh, I was sick and I needed like
antibiotics.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And they spent 5 minutes with me, and I'm generally healthy, like easy, right? Write the script, I'll pick it up from Walgreens, and no
yeah,
problem. But in the case of hormone therapy specifically, there's just a lot more to know about the person and about what their history's been and about what their experiences on a day-to-day basis, so that you can actually form a really educated opinion as a doc, and put them on the best protocol possible. And then there's going to be a lot more heavy lifting and follow up with these patients as well, which we're prepared to do. A lot of telehealth companies are like, set it and forget it. We'll just put you on a subscription and like talk to you never.
Yeah.
And so I think that is it's our challenge, but it's also our opportunity to really separate ourselves from the rest of the
Yeah.
pack. Because if we're ready and prepared to invest in these patients and do the hard work and do the heavy lifting alongside them, I think we can really set ourselves apart.
Yeah. It's that personalized care that you mentioned multiple times, which is awesome. Now, I'm sure you feel the same way about this next statement. I feel like the space is a wild, wild west right now, especially when it comes to compliance. Can you touch on compliance? That's compliance with the doctors network. You can touch on it with the pharmacies, or even talk about research, peptides, and the difference of what we do, with doctor prescribed versus what's out there.
Yeah, that's the wild, wild west, right?
Yeah,
The research stuff is crazy.
yeah,
I had a call
yeah,
this morning with one of our doc's wives called
yeah,
me for advice. She didn't go to her husband for the doctor. She came to me for like guidance on GLP-1s and other peptides, and she brought two of her friends onto the call as well. She like
yeah,
wanted them to hear and like be. They all want to do it together. They want to get on this like longevity journey together.
yeah,
And they said, well, we have a friend who just like did her Reddit research and went on the site and just bought it and just did it. And like they showed me the site and I was like, don't do it. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I think that's what you need. Part of what there needs to be more education around. I think the government's cracking down right now on some of that. And so if you're most of the issues that you've seen over the years reported that actually gives compounding a bad rap is more tied to I think the crap that's coming over from China that just is completely unregulated through these four research only sites. And I'm sure there's some four research sites that are doing a great job. I don't know. But the bottom line is like if you actually look at the compounding pharmacies that are doing it the right way, that really uh, care about the quality of the product they're delivering, they're going through as much or more scrutiny than the big pharma companies that are producing product as well. And
oh
so
yeah,
I think, those are the kind of groups that we're trying to align with from a compliance perspective. We want to work with groups that are doing it the right way, that really care about the patient deeply and care about the quality of the product that they're delivering and the experience they're delivering. Because all of those things matter to us and really matter to the patient and the outcomes that we create. And you do see companies get exposed when they're not paying attention to that and they're not delivering. Um, that is part of the benefit of social media and Reddit because it does expose you if you don't do a good job.
yeah. You
Uh,
have it's crazy to see. You have all these like TikTokers and people all over just like, hey, take Reddit. And they're like 17 years old, and it's just Sean and I actually talked about this a lot on his podcast, and it was very interesting to say the least.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I want to get on Reddit as soon as possible,
Yeah,
but also want it to go through the right channels and know that it's being done
exactly.
in the right way. So yeah, I think the rest of the compliance piece really comes down to your decision as a business of how much time you care to spend with those people, like what kind of risk you're willing to take as a business owner. But in our business, I feel like the opportunity is so large that if you do right by the patient, you can build an incredible business at the same time. And so cutting corners by trying to do it cheaply or by
Yeah,
not taking the extra time, to me, is not livable.
yeah. Where do you see telehealth in the next 2, 3, 5 years, even in this industry?
I've heard the analogy used that like that there's a pie out like and we're if you had a pizza pie, we're like in the first slice of the pie.
Yeah,
So there's like we're just scratching the surface of what it will become, and I I agree to a certain like to a certain amount. I think that's right. That I think there's a massive growth opportunity. I still think very few people from like a global population are using these platforms and getting access. Some of that's going to come down to affordability and where can we take the affordability of some of these peptides too, because right now it's still only accessible probably to the top like 10-20% of income earners in the United States. When you talk about a protocol that's going to be $500-600 if you want to be on GLPs and you want to be on NAD and you want to be on uh, yeah, GKC view, like, I, um, that's kind of the number, right? You're going to be paying $600 a month. I don't know too many people, that can afford
can
that.
afford that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I think we'll see, if we can continue to get, I mean, if the government gets on board, right, and makes it more widely approved, then some of these peptides will get driven down in cost because more compound pharmacies will start to create them. It'll create more of a marketplace of supply and it'll drive
yeah,
down the costs for the consumer. So ultimately, that's been what's happened in the GLP-1 space. and it's been incredible for the American consumer because it went from $1,200 a month for accessibility down to 500, and now you have companies like us that are in the $200-300 range. So it just opens up the market incredibly. And I think the same thing will happen on the peptide side over time, so it becomes a lot more accessible. And then new evolutions in medications. Like we just talked about, we touched on Retta for a second, but like that's
Yeah.
one. You see new oral options being studied on the GLP-1 side, and there's going to be just a ton more research that floods into this space as the market gets bigger. So, with that, I think we have a huge opportunity. I think it's, 10, 20x over the next 5 years.
Yeah. It's very exciting. Now,
Giseke
Matt, one of the
masikeli
last things we like to do on the podcast, so the
agashi.
previous person that I, hosted, ask a blind question, not knowing who you are. And I'm going to ask you the question from actually one of my really good friends. He's huge in the stem cell space. He has a question for you. And at the end of that, once you answer it, you're going to have a question for the next person as well. So
Yeah.
his question is, what is one thing you can learn from your competition without naming them that would actually complement your business? And then once you're done answering that, same thing, have a question for the next person as well.
I think the biggest thing to learn from your competition is, can I answer with two? I need to answer
Sure.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one is pricing models. I think pricing models are really indicative of how people run their business. Some people have more aggressive pricing models, and some people have less aggressive pricing models. And it says a lot about the type of consumer that they attract and the kind of like quality of the business that they're building. So I take a lot from that and learn a lot from on the business side and how we make decisions, a lot from looking at our competitors and looking at the marketplace.
Yeah.
And then I've been really excited looking at the companies that are more on the forefront of evolution, like revolutionizing personalized care,
Yeah.
and the type of data that they give back to the customer. So I secret shop a lot of those for myself and try to learn as much
Yeah.
about how they're personalizing care off of that and like what they're giving them accessibility to, so that we can build the same kind of functionality,
Is
and
there
try to
any
provide
that
as much value as possible.
what's like the one that you like the most out of those, would you say?
And I haven't fully gotten all the process completed, but I think Superhuman is
Yeah.
probably leading the way in
Yeah.
terms of
They're awesome.
connecting product and Blinger.
Yeah. They're awesome, man.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your question for the next person I host?
I think my question would be, what would you change about the industry? What would be the one thing you would change about the industry that would set it up for the most success into the future?
Any industry or whatever industry they're in, or this industry?
Oh, this industry. Yeah, like
Okay. So
the
telehealth.
the telehealth industry.
Okay.
If you could make one change to the industry, what would it be to make sure that we have the most likelihood of success 5 years down?
I like that question. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks, man. This was amazing. Very
You got it.
excited.
Thank you, Steve. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.